TownHall Heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome here to TownHall Heroes episode 138. My name is Solid Jake. We've got the Dunkus and the Justing for the very first time here to talk largely about the Eastern Clash. You'll notice the graphic if you're watching the VOD says Eastern Clash Recap Show. It's kind of a lie because I got lazy with the graphic. We're really going to be talking a lot about back to the Western Clash with Team 8. Going in, we'll be talking about the Warrior meta and some of the changes from our last show we discussed. Of course, having Justin here, going to take advantage of that. And then we will get into the Eastern Clash, which concluded just this week. But Dunk, man, we were just talking about Dauntless. What else is new with you?
Oh, man. I don't know. I've just been kind of reading a lot of, like, mid-20th century sci-fi in the last couple weeks is mostly what I've been doing with my time. So, like, I had never really read any Isaac Asimov until this year. And then just last week I got into Robert Heinlein. So I've read, like, a dozen of his, like, short novels in the last week. And that's pretty much what I've been doing with my spare time. It's been a lot of fun.
Speaking of books, I mean, you know, we've talked a lot about Dresden. I just started the Aeronauts Windlass. That's the other series by Jim Butcher. It's very different and very good. So I would pick that up.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, when you're done with your sci-fi exploration. Now, Justin, welcome to the show. Since this is in fact your first time, I mean, obviously you play with Team 8, but I'm actually very curious because I don't know your esports background.
Well, this is the first game that I've been, like, truly competitive in. I played, like, Blizzard games since I was a little child. Like, my dad had got the original Warcraft and Warcraft 2, and I used to, like, sit on his lap and play that when I was really tiny. So, always been a Blizzard fanboy, I guess.
Nice.
And pretty much just playing, like, League of Legends with my friend Buds, who's also on my team, and just our real-life friends before this.
Yeah, did you guys go to high school together?
Yeah, through middle school as well.
Wow. So that's actually a pretty crazy story for you guys, the fact that you're, you know, now playing video games together. Obviously that's got to be kind of cool for you guys in your personal lives. Like, what do your parents think of the whole thing?
Well, they think a lot better of it now, I think, than when we first started, obviously, because we weren't making anything, and we were just like, it's like, oh, you guys should be going to college, obviously, like, that's, like, the norm, and it was like, but we really want to play video games, and I guess, like, now it's actually, like, my dad is really supportive, and, like, my mom just started watching it. She's, like, talking about how she likes it more than football and stuff, and I know Bud's parents are really supportive of it now. His dad used to be, like, not so much, but now he's, like, on board, because he's like, wow, you're going all these places, and making money. It's really cool.
It's such an awesome experience to, like, watch your parents, like, become viewers and stuff, and then it'll get to the point where they'll, like, give it. I don't know if your parents do this, but, like, my dad used to always, like, give advice, like, tell us what heroes we should pick and stuff. It's so funny.
When we were looking to qualify, actually, my dad, like, when he was at work, he, like, wrote up the bracket. Like, he, like, made the whole bracket for the next week off the seeding. He's like, this is what the bracket should be, like, use this as you will. I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. Like, took his time to do that.
Nice.
It's always, you know, humbling and surprising when you find out your parents follow you, especially if you're like my dad, who, like, literally never once would tell me that he, like, creeps on everything I do. And then one day I tweeted out something kind of controversial and he gives me a call. He's like, Jake, you should delete that. Like, I'm just like, what? But, you know, it's super cool to have parents that support you in that way. So awesome. Well, you know, let's kind of go back to the Western Clash, because Team 8 came into the season. We've talked a lot about you guys and in your story being the team that was not supposed to be good, right? You're a team that no one had expectations for. It was initially just like Glaurung and Chu8's team. A lot of people like that. That was the general consensus. Chu8 left. You guys picked up Yoda and just kind of went in and just started slaying nerds throughout the league. Then the criticism was, all right, well, on land, these guys aren't going to be as good. Prismat, known to have some nerves when it comes to being on stage, and how would the team perform? So let's just kind of go into your mentality going into the event. Like, what was the team's expectation for performance overall going into it?
Well, we didn't have like insane expectations. I think everyone wanted to place at least like top 4. Like, I think that's everyone's, like, I don't think anyone was like seriously bummed out when we were done. Like, we got top 4, which for us was like pretty good because it was our first LAN as a team, obviously. And like you brought up like the Prismat having issues on LAN. I felt like he actually played really well, and I talked to him about it. And like, I kind of thought this going in is with the team he was playing on before, I don't think they necessarily like got along as well as we do now with Priz. Like, we're just like a big happy family now. So like, I think Prismat's just more comfortable on stage, and I think that helped us a lot playing at the Clash.
I think one of the things I asked Prismat going into the event the day before was he just said his response was rather than getting nervous, he gets angry, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
So I love that. Obviously, Team 8 still is looked at as like a top 3 team looking after the standings in North America. But going into phase 2 of HGC, now that Western Clash is done, are you guys feeling like you're in the same position? Do you guys feel like you're in a better position? Like, where do you have your teams? Like, if you had to put yourself 1 through 8 in NA, where would you say you are?
Probably first.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure how we'll do coming back to the second half because we are taking a break. We have like 2 weeks where we're just not practicing.
Glau's in Japan, right?
Yeah. So we're just taking 2 weeks off. Like, I know a lot of other teams took breaks too, so we shouldn't be like too far behind because of it. But I think a lot of it, almost all of it, for the second half is going to come to the first weekend because we play against Tempo Storm and Gale Force in the first weekend, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah, you do.
we have 2 weeks to prepare for that, and I think depending on how those 2 weeks go, we'll pretty much decide where we stand as far as placements.
Mm-hmm.
But I think top 3 still for sure, like regardless of how the next couple weeks go.
Yeah, you guys get that Misfits treatment of last season, or the first half of the season, where Misfits just had to go against Fnatic and Dig right out of the gates.
It's like such an awkward thing to happen in top 3 because like the whole situation between those 3 teams essentially can be decided in the first week.
Yep.
When you have stuff like that and you don't know the meta going into that, just it's weird.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of preparation for that, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll only have about 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll transition to talk about the meta in a little bit in terms of expectations for where things will go, because last night we had Open Division and we started to get a taste of what the teams are feeling is strong, and it has changed so much since the Western Clash in particular, but the Eastern Clash definitely has had its influence and everything. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really interesting, looking at North America as a whole, where the teams stand, because I mean, we know our top 3 definitely looks like it's Gale Force, Team 8, and Tempo Storm. But if you look down the pipeline, I almost look at B-Step as a team that could finally be a contender once more. They started out the season very, very poorly, and then since then they've been performing quite well. Do you feel the same way, or do you think that they're still just a step behind?
I think B-Step's definitely on an uptrend. I think since their first weeks, like I think they took the losses pretty hard, just because like I talked to Matre about it because we're fairly close, and I don't know, he was really bummed out about it because he basically what he told us, and this was just after the first week. He's like, well, now you guys need to win it all, like, because just the way it was, and since we had already beaten them, like their odds of getting top 3 with us winning and us being like a big upset, just like really hurt their odds. And then I think they're just practicing harder and just like way more motivated now as a team. I think it's like really coming together for them because I've been talking to Montre about it, and
That's great.
I think they'll do a lot better in the second half for sure.
Yeah, well, time will tell in North America. Western Clash, let's kind of go back to that and just go into the post-event. did you guys, obviously you said you were happy with the top 4 placement, but moving forward, how do you motivate yourself to go beyond that? How do you motivate yourself to not be the best in America, but to be better than Europe, to be the best in the world?
I think after playing at the Clash and just getting pretty destroyed by Dig, it was very like eye-opening to me. Like, I feel like I'm gonna have to play better if I want to compete the next time we're there. And like, it feels like in NA you don't get nearly the same level of like I don't feel like I get pressured nearly as hard in like scrims and in like HTC games as I did while we were there. So like, for me, it's like just really motivating. Just feeling that, like, because like we're used to like doing really well in NA, right? So going there, just like feeling what it feels like to be on like the other side of it is just like really motivating, because it's a bad feeling.
Yeah. Anytime you play against competition like internationally that feels like a step up, it can definitely be a catalyst. Do you think Tempo benefited from their experience like at Gold Club? And do you think that actually like helped them? Because they didn't have the strongest showing at Western Clash. Like, I mean, you guys beat them, but also like just overall they looked kind of shaky, and we expected a lot more from them, I think, coming into the event. Was that surprising to you? Did you think they were stronger going into Western, or?
Well, we didn't really think about that too much as far as like our matchup into them going into it. We were pretty much just basing it off of our most recent scrims. I think it depends a lot on how the teams take it. So like, there's a chance that they were just the opposite of like motivated after just getting like destroyed, if that was how they felt like against the teams in that. So I don't know, I think it's just all about how you take it. Like for me, and I think for the rest of my team, we just took it as like really motivating, like just not wanting to feel like you're getting dominated in a game.
Yeah.
How to just beat that, how to get better.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's tough, but again, just congratulations on being the number 1 North America team, especially in the Western Clash, showing up, proving everyone wrong that you guys can perform on your first LAN, and rising to the occasion. Now, as we move forward, the meta is evolving rapidly, largely due to the influence of the Eastern Clash, but also due to the balance changes that have entered the game. And one of the big talking points we had a couple weeks ago in episode 137 was just the balance design that we're seeing in the Warriors. Now, Dunk, I think you highlighted this wonderfully. The way that they're treating Warriors, giving them built-in parts of their kit, the spell block or the physical armor, and trying to define a warrior as anti-mage or not, seems to be the trend with Warriors. And Dunk, you're not a big fan of that, because you're saying that this is going to just put more emphasis on the draft, and the game will be won more in the draft than before. Justin, as a Warrior player, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I kind of agree with that. I think that I like the idea of there being niche tank picks where like, oh, they have all AP damage, like all magic damage, we can go into a Nubarak. Like, I think that's okay. But I think if it gets to the point where they add that to like numerous heroes, like beyond like what they've already done, then I think it will be a problem, because I don't really like the idea of like half the tanks being for one thing and half the tanks being for the other thing. And then like there's going to be tanks that are just like innately good at both, which would just dominate again, and it would just be like Murd and ETC every single game, because like they're not really getting changed, it feels like, and it feels like they're still like really competitive. But I think that the tanks that they're changing, like Anubarak and Arthas, right now are just getting overtuned, and they're just going to be too strong for what they're good at. Like I think as long as the hero can still be played and still be versatile, like I think Tyrael, I'm not 100% certain on this, but it doesn't feel like Tyrael is that much different when he gets fought by like Vala or something like that. But so like I feel like he's still versatile, even though he's like anti-mage now.
Even without opposing will, you don't see a big difference?
Well, I mean, he's obviously weaker, but like it doesn't feel like unplayable. Like it doesn't feel like you're getting like severely punished for picking it into like a lot of attack damage heroes. So like I think the Tyrael change might be okay, and like as long as they don't overdo it, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I just don't want to pick a tank and be like, oh, well, we picked this and he's good against this, and they just picked that, and now I can't do anything for the entire game. Like, I just don't want it to be like that.
Yeah. I feel like Anubrek is kind of in that spot, though. Not, like, terribly, but he's, like, you only ever pick him at the end against, like, mages that he just shuts down so hard, and that's really concerning to me since he was, like, really the first one of this new paradigm that they've shown.
Yeah, I think he definitely is just, like, a little over-tuned at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they just made him a little bit more versatile and just less punishing for specifically mages, I think that would be better.
It's almost weird to watch because you'll see a Leeming throw her combo out and a noob will step in front of it, and it does like 4% of its health or something. Like it's just like, wait, did I misview that? It's insane. But also, you're talking about Arthas being this anti-auto attack hero, and I don't know if it's as extreme. I think his kit just in general is a little bit insane. But Nico, be quiet. My cat is meowing. I'm sorry if you guys hear random meows coming through. Let's talk a bit about Arthas, though, since he is the new hotness. We're seeing heavy prioritization in the open division of this past week. Obviously, this patch is still quite young. But, I mean, Justin, do you feel that he is the go-to?
Yeah, he definitely feels way too strong. I'm not sure if there's very specific counters that just haven't been found, or if it's like you have to play against, like, obviously, like, percent damage would probably be good against him, but, like, beyond that, doesn't seem like there's any, like, super big counters. Like, I think they just put way too much into his kit. Like, we only scrimmed for about a week on the patch, but I was playing Arthas in some of the games just to, like, test how strong he is. And if you have, like, a Rhaegar with Ancestral or something, you can literally just, like, run at them, like, pop ghouls, just run at them and just keep running at them, and, like, you literally just never have to stop unless, like, your team dies. Like, he just feels way too tanky now. Like, I just felt so easy. Like, I just run at them and they just have to run away. Like, they just respected the walking powerhouse. It's too good right now.
Interesting.
He's very good. If I look at some of the other early drafts we're seeing, I feel I'm not 100% certain on this, and I'm curious how you guys feel. But we're seeing a ton of first pick Zarya, and Zarya's always been great, especially in situations where Tassadar is banned. You see, first ban will be one OP hero, maybe Arthas, and then it'll go over to a Tassadar ban, and then the first pick is very commonly Zarya. How much of that is due to just having the guaranteed sustain that isn't discriminative towards like auto attack or spell damage in her kit, do you think?
I think it definitely matters. I think part of the problem, or part of the reason that Zarya could be priority, such high priority in like alignment with these changes, is like if you have a Nubarak and Arthas who are already they're tanky, but they do like way too much damage if they're just allowed to just sit in your back line or just like fight you consistently. So if you have a Zarya, she kind of just amplifies that, and like she's good against it too, because like her shield, obviously you can put it on your squishies if they're getting pressured, and then she's like, her damage is going to increase with you having like the sustained Arthas in the fight. Like, as long as the fight's continuing for a long period of time, Zarya is going to get incredible value. So I feel like she's just really good in combination with those things.
And she was good even before the most recent tweaks. Like, she was good on Western Eastern Clash patch. Like, I mean, it's pretty obvious if you watch Eastern Clash. Like, Zarya's a very impactful hero, and they respect her a lot. Western Clash, she didn't see as much play, but still quite a bit. I don't know. I think she's definitely getting better the more bruisers there are. But yeah, super powerful.
I think like one thing with her kit is it kind of feels like if you don't have the engage tools to just like fight her instantly and like force her into just like a quick fight, then you just lose. Like it feels kind of like how like Sergeant Hammer used to be like a long time ago, or how like Nazebo like Spirit used to be. Like if you just didn't have the tools to deal with it, like you pretty much just lost, and that's kind of what it feels like now.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting seeing things change so rapidly. I mean, the warrior prioritization almost feels like Dahaka, Zarya, Arthas are the three, and ETC is definitely still up there because you can never count out both of his heroics. I mean, Mosh Pit or Stage Dive, great utility in his kit. Muradin also on the rise, though, once more. And I feel like that's a little bit more influence from Eastern Clash, just being like, hey, guys, this hero's still awesome, you know?
Yeah, I feel like Muradin gets counted out so often and then just randomly shows back up again all the time.
It kind of felt like at LAN he was priority even for us, just because it's LAN. So I think that also has part of it. Like, his Stormbolts feel much easier to land on LAN for me.
That's a good point.
Like, if you're used to playing with like high ping, like 60 plus ping, like just to like Western or Central or whatever, it definitely is such a difference when you play on LAN and you play Muradin. Like, I thought I was bad at Muradin, and then I played on LAN and I was like, just kidding, I'm a beast. Like, just land all the Stormbolts. Like, I don't know, it's just a lot easier.
Yeah.
But I think he's still good though in general. I think part of the reason for that is like they kind of nerfed a lot of like the chain CC percent damage stuff that used to like really affect him. Like Tychus just got his range nerfed, and like they have Greymane, but those comps don't seem as relevant right now.
Well, Greymane still. I almost feel like he's more prominent right now. Overall,
Yeah, like, Greymane is, but like Tychus got nerfed, and like that was like one of the more annoying things.
Yeah, Tychus did do fairly well in the Eastern Clash, though, did he not?
It was before the changes, right?
I'm not
Was
certain.
it Eastern Clash before the Tychus changes?
I'm not 100% certain
not sure
what patch they played on, because there's been so many since Western and Eastern. It's just really confusing. Maybe.
It's labeled Lucio patch, but I'm not sure. Tychus was nerfed on Clash? Okay. He had 10 games played, went 8-2, which is really surprising if that was post-nerf, but...
Yeah, it's... Because he does not see any play right now, at least in the open division for North America. Obviously, I don't know what's happening in scrims. Even on maps like Shrine, I was thinking maybe we'd still see him on Shrine just because the quarterback, you know, the grenades to go in and snipe those skeletal defenders, an amazing bit of utility. And we have such high priority on big frontline heroes like even Johanna. And, you know, he's always going to be good again at tank busting those type of heroes. But yeah, no, it's definitely something to know. If he's more limited, it's going to make some of these beastly tanks scarier. Maybe like, but then we get into the argument of should there be more heroes that excel in dismantling tanks, right? That's kind of what Tychus is defined as. He is defined as the one ranged assassin that is a tank buster. He is the only one that is literally designed for that purpose that I can think of. But at the moment that you start to create more of those type heroes, I think you start putting even more of that. I mean, Dunk, is that putting more influence on the draft to make it very specific in those counters, and you think that's a negative, or should it just be more of an option built into the talent trees?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if you need multiple heroes who are classified as tank busters. Like, maybe there's just a categorical problem where right now bruisers are overtuned. Like, and tanks overall are overtuned. Like Justin was talking about Arthas feeling overtuned. Like, a Nubrak is definitely overtuned against the things he's strong against. Maybe it's just like right now bruisers overall are just too impactful to the game, but I'm not sure that's like a hard thing to say. When you're talking about like a whole role like that, it's difficult. Like, how much influence should any one role have on the flow of team fights, you know? Like, tanks have always been super impactful for team fighting because they control so much space. So it's hard to say. I don't think you necessarily want to like limit it to only certain heroes are good against tanks, of course. So the more in the Tychus direction doesn't really make sense, but there should probably be options in the talent tree to deal with it.
Like, obviously giant killers, you know, a very common thing, and that's level 13, and you know, inherently that's going to get a lot of value versus big health bars. But there's, you know, it seems pretty linear overall when it comes to that talent generally. I think one of the other talents when it comes to this, you know, heroes like Arthas reigning in the meta. Ali Obs just had a huge update. A big shout out to Ali for all the work he's done, because his new update's great. And I'm actually trying to really change the way I observe events. The reason I bring this up in this moment is one of the things we can track with his observer interface is actual time that you CC. And it's actually insane looking at some of these heroes like Lunara, who's risen in the meta since Eastern Clash, and Arthas, and the amount of time that they are providing CC throughout the game, like minutes of time where you're slowed or provided that in the game. And Jay Howe kept saying this last night. He kept trying to make a case for Raynor with Executioner, but it's definitely something within the realm of possibilities when you look at heroes like Arthas being a first pick potential. And Lunara also seeing a lot of play. Like it's really interesting to me to see where things might go, because we look at these smaller things like, yes, Anubarak is the anti-mage, and we've been in a meta where there's always been dominant mages, right? Always. But then maybe this shifts into an executioner phase where that becomes the one of the ways to counter this. And I mean, overall, just based on that logic or that concept, do you guys agree that that is a possibility, or are there just obvious things that shut that down?
I definitely think so. I would prefer if they do make changes, because the bruisers are overtuned. I would prefer that they do it in a way like how Giant Killer is, how it's like sustained tank killing, because like a while back, this is fairly recently, the meta, a lot of the games for me, my only job was to not get one shot by the other team, and I'm playing tank, and like when Curse Bullet was just out, and then Varian had stun and taunt, so like if they had Malfurion and I had any tank, and they had Varian and Greymane, I pretty much could not frontline for my team at any point in time. Like literally the entire game would be me like running away and not getting CC'd, and like the whole goal of me was to not die. So there was like basically zero counterplay for me outside of just don't die, and that was what I had to do all game. So I would hope that they go away from that, because it kind of completely changes the way that you have to play tank, when that is like a possibility, when you can just like point and click, just one shot the tank. So I think as long as they put it into like sustain things like Giant Killer and stuff like that, and like the way Tychus works sort of outside of the bigger they are, just like with like the other build in the rhythm Tychus kind of sort of thing. Like I think that would be better for having like sustained damage burn down tanks if they do feel like tanks are too strong right now.
So you're afraid of like the Curse Bullet Chromie?
Stuff like that with like Varian, point and click, just percent damage. Like I think Curse Bullet is just ridiculous. At least, obviously, I'm biased because I play tank. Like the first time I got hit by it, like I didn't read the patch notes, because in HGC we were playing on PTR, I'm pretty sure, so I was just avoiding the patch notes, and I go into Hero League, and a Greymane just like pew, just like little pew, and it just does like like 2k damage or something, and I'm Muradin, and I'm just like, wait a second, like half my health almost just like gone, and I had to check. I'm like, was that a bug? Like I don't know, it just feels very unhealthy from the tank perspective to have that much instant percent damage. I think like Leoric Train and stuff is like good, just sustained percent damage, because otherwise I think percent damage might just become the thing you need to have, basically, in order to win.
Tanks,
yeah.
Especially because it bypasses armor.
Yeah, it's like true damage, percent damage.
Yeah, it's kind of silly, I think, that just it always bypasses armor or whatever. Like, having it always be true damage is just another knob they could have had to, like, tune percent damage, that they don't have because they made it all bypass armor.
Which is... It's a really interesting interaction when you think about it, right? It's very, I mean, maybe that's part of the Lunara climb, right? The poison damage, it's harder for a lot of the supports that are prominent to heal through, just because you can spread it out and have a lot of consistent damage just continue to come through. And yeah, no, it's not something we've seen a ton of. There's not a lot of heroes that have those kind of dots, right? But even last night, when we look at Open, Leo was the Arthas counter. Like in lane, Leo had a huge involvement rate, and it's just because of Arthas entirely.
Yeah.
So, I actually want to, before we move into the Eastern Clash, I want to talk about a few of the things we saw in this patch that I found really interesting in particular. So, one map that we ended up seeing, this was in the semifinals of the finals here. So these are, in theory, the top four teams in North America's amateur scene. This was Even in Death versus UTA. And they ended up playing on Battlefield of Eternity where the comps both had multi-support, and that's not something we see a lot of right now. Now, on the side of UTA, they had Vala as their one assassin. No, excuse me. They had Vala Valera, Malfurion, Tyrande, Arthas. Think about that. Arthas, Tyrande, and Malf, all with the CC. Then Valera to complement that more, and Vala with, I think she ended up going the Monster Hunter build for the poke. And against, so it's already like, Valera, okay, whatever. They're trying to make the combo work. Against this, it's a bit weird. We saw the draft started with, I believe, Lucio, Greymane, and then they ended up grabbing Rhaegar. So Lucio Rhaegar with Bloodlust, and their last pick ended up being Medivh. So it's basically triple support versus blow up comp. Now, this is a confined meta between two teams on a map like BOE where things can get a little bit weird. But I literally understand nothing about that game, like that draft.
Yeah, this is a super weird draft. Like, looking at it, it's really interesting. I don't know. I still am not sold on Valera. I just can't get over, like, every time I see that hero, it's like, oh, not sure if she's good. And in this game specifically, like, how does UTA, like, is so all in on the one shot? They made a huge mistake banning Li Ming, not Medivh. I think they would have easily won the game if they banned Medivh. Without having watched the game, just looking at the draft, like, anytime you're running Tyrande, you have to ban Medivh. I mean, that's something we're doing at Western Clash, is like, anytime you have Tyrande, you have to ban Medivh. It's just not an option. Especially when your whole, like, composition is based on the one shot with the CC chain.
Yeah, it's one of those crazy games. We can actually just kind of poke through some of these other drafts to see if there's anything that stands out. That's pretty standard. Oh, we saw a lot of Chromie. I mean, Chromie's been on the rise in general. We saw a surprising amount of Ariel and Vala, but that was a comfort for one of the teams. And again, Leoric being played a ton versus Arthas because he was commonly prioritized early on in the draft. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the first glimpse that we're seeing here of what could be the meta, at least from the amateur teams. And I guess we'll have to see where that evolves. Justin, I mean, from your scrims, do any of these things sound at least accurate from what you expect to see?
I think the priority in, like, shielding, like Zarya, maybe Lucio, and, like, Arthas makes a lot of sense. So then also, like, I think percent damage is probably just, like, the response to that, to the new tanky tanks being so tanky. So I think Lucio is going to have priority just because of Arthas, too. Just because it's really... I think in the draft you're talking about, I actually watched that game, because how's my boy? And I was watching it, and I'm pretty sure they picked the Arthas pretty early on the side of UTA, so I think that's why the Lucio came out so early. So they had, like, because you don't want to give teams both typically, because you get ran down by really scary Arthas. So I think they probably had the idea for just like a cheesy double support comp, but then the Medivh, they just kind of had to pick it against it. But I think that's like part of the reason for the Arthas is kind of just causing all these other heroes to come into the meta, like the Leoric, for example, or just percent damage in general, Lucio, move speed, things like that.
When we look at the shielding heroes like Zarya or Tassadar having the impact that they have, how much of that is due to the fact that the support pool is so specific and so small? Like, if you have Zarya, suddenly you got Cleansing Shield, so Lucio becomes a little bit more viable in that regard, and you've got that snap sustain, right? And it feels like, those shielding heroes almost seem exclusively needed because we have a very predictable support pool. Like, I know we have an Uther rework coming. Maybe that could help supplement this and change things up a bit. I don't know, but
I'm not sure that the amount of the pseudo supports being viable is related to this support pool overall. Just historically, it's been very difficult to balance Tassadar and Tyrande. And I think Zarya is in that same boat where, just the heroes that provide shielding or healing as like a big but not primary feature of the kit, like they seem to always be troublesome to balance because like it's so hard to juggle how much they influence their team defensively, but they also have to feel good. Like they can make plays and be impactful outside of that. So like Tastar, Zaryatron, they've always been troublesome to balance. So right now it just happens to be a time where they're both on the upswing, Tas and Zarya.
Well, fair enough. All right, well, let's kind of swing into the Eastern Clash because obviously that's the new big hotness where all the teams in Asia collide, 3 from Korea, 3 from Europe, and then their minor regions being C and Taiwan, right? I always get it mixed up. Regardless, coming into this, I think everybody was a little bit curious where China would stand since we haven't seen a lot of them in a while. They're a team that were once, top of the world, and then they kind of fell off around the end of the year, partially due to, visa issues, which tends to be a common trend. Oh, let me just mute game sounds. I'm loading up a replay to check something. But yeah, we know that China's crazy. I think at this point, that's one of the things you can say because they play like every hero. And let's just talk about E-Star. Like, I think at the very start of the event, E-Star scared everyone a little bit. I think even Korea was probably like, oh, these guys are a little wild and pretty damn good.
I was actually really surprised that E-Star got 0-3'd by Tempest. Like, I really did not expect that result.
I don't think anyone did after watching the upper bracket. Like
they just like flopped so hard that set, or I don't know, maybe Tempest just leveled up. It's hard to say, but like based on the way the rest of the tournament was going, that was probably like the biggest upset in terms of like severity of the match. Like once you actually saw MVP Black L5, like you could tell they were close. So going in, even though I would have figured L5 was stronger, but like I did not expect E-Star to just get bodied by Tempest.
Dunk, how are you not a mod on the channel? I'm so sorry.
Feels bad, man.
You can try posting your link again. I think that was very surprising. And, basically what that ends up meaning in the standings of the event, it is top 3 Korea.
Yeah.
And then, the next 3 were China from 4 through 6th. So very similar to the Western Clash.
Western Clash, yeah. I mean, that is interesting. Like, I wonder if there's actually just that much of a gap between regions. And now I wish we got to see, like, China versus NAEU. Like, I wonder where they sit,
Sweden's not that far away, but yeah, that'll be the true test. On that point, Justin, do you like having a Western and an Eastern Clash? Do you think that's good or bad for the growth of Heroes esports, like in terms of skill level rising?
I think it's good. I like obviously that they have Sweden. That's going to be like all regions. I think that's much better, obviously.
But would you prefer to have 4 globals than these 2 confined events?
I think what they're doing is good because like at least for us as like just my personal team and like my experience in it, it might be kind of nice actually to have get eased into it somewhat. Like we play against Europe, we see what we can learn from them, and then I would say like the other regions are probably above them even. So
NA nice went to Blizzard.
Ease into it.
Please be gentle, senpai. And they just paired you guys against Europe, who still slaughtered us.
Yep.
I mean, it makes better storylines, though, at least. If you get to see NA versus you like multiple times, then you're more likely to get interesting plot points from those teams matching up more often.
I think it's just an easier rivalry too, I guess. Like they're right there. We pretty much speak the same language. Like good, we can tussle. Like
I think every player speaks English, so yeah, we speak the same language. I can't think of a single player in Europe that doesn't speak English, actually. I guess I wouldn't have spoken to them, so I wouldn't know. Awesome. Well,
I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm sure there's some that would prefer to speak their native language.
Prefer for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all in all, let's E-Star definitely, I think, made some good, what's the word I'm looking for here, impressions on the world, just because like they played wonderfully in the upper bracket. They busted out a lot of different cool heroes. Like I mentioned, we saw. I'm just gonna pull up some actual drafts here so we can show some of their matches from throughout the tournament. Now, E-Star versus Tempest, we talked about that being a little bit disappointing. So let's look away from that. Zero Panda, another team in China. We see Lucio's prioritization. Obviously, some of this is just weird. Like, why? It's Warhead Junction 1, but then you've got Asmodan, Butcher trying to make that work. Illidan seeing more play than what we tend to see. Even Murky picking up some wins in this event. Murky was played by Korean teams as well, which I thought was interesting since he didn't see any play in the Western Clash. And Dunk, you mentioned you were surprised about that.
I expected a couple games here and there. Like, the amount of representation we saw from Murky here at the Eastern Clash was kind of what I expected at Western Clash, like, going into it. It's just like a game here or there, not like super common, but one every once in a while. But I was really surprised we saw zero Chromie play at Eastern Clash. Yeah. Like, that was really weird to me, because I feel like Chromie is actually really strong. And she just got zero playtime.
It's true. Did she get any games? Was it zero?
No, zero.
That's insane.
Literal zero.
I didn't even realize that.
It felt like the majors in general just had like less of an impact at the Eastern Clash versus Western.
Yeah.
Get Western, the majors just took off.
Yeah. It felt like Lunara was taking like the slot in team comps where like you might have snuck in a mage like a Jaina or a Gul'dan or something was taken by Lunara a lot of the time, it felt like, in Eastern Clash. Which was interesting, because I wasn't expecting to see any Lunara really going in. But then when I saw how they were kind of using it with Zeratul, especially like between Black and L5, when they were playing each other, like the way the Lunara Zeratul comps kind of worked, like they were playing her way more bursty than a lot of teams were playing her back in the day. So it was, it made sense once I actually saw it, but I wasn't expecting any of her going in.
Well, some of the other things you'll just clearly see in these trends. Tyrael's still very popular over there. Zarya, insane popularity. Like her involvement had to have been something disgusting.
Yeah, it was 87%. Oh. So Tass had 100% involvement.
More than Mal.
The only hero. Yeah, Tass was the only hero with 100% involvement, and he went 9-1 in wins-loss, and then was banned all the rest of the games of the whole tournament. So yeah,
that's
Tass is fair.
Oh, that's like not common either, though, right? In the Korean HGC, like their standard league, weren't they? This might be completely wrong, but I thought they were like undervaluing Tass compared to like the other regions. Like I felt like NA was.
I think at the end of the season, yeah, but obviously things have changed.
It seems kind of weird. Yeah.
Tass and Zarya, the shielders, are just so prominent. In the game, both really, really high up there. And like I personally don't like that. I don't know about you guys, but like shielding just, it feels like it's got guaranteed impact all the time. The shield still, even with the reduced or the increased cooldown on Tassadar shield, still feels like he's got consistent amount of burst sustain. And it just denies like big plays. Yeah, you're making a play when you save your ally and stuff, but they still fulfill this kind of middle of the ground road where like no matter how you build your composition, both of those heroes are going to feel fine.
They're just so flexible to pick early in the draft, like flexible and safe. Like you can't get punished for picking a Zarya basically. Like there's nothing you can really do about it, you know? At least that's what it feels like.
And like, I can't even think of like a fun way to go around shields. It's not like poison. Just again, poisons persist longer than the shield's duration, and maybe that's part of Lunara's climb. But I don't know.
I mean, that's not really how Lunara was played, though. Like, if you look at the way Lunara was played, like successfully, a lot of the times it was actually like bursting someone with leaping strikes and the Zeratul or like another assassin. and that was the way Lunara looked the most successful. Like, I was actually really interested. One of the drafts had Lunara Zeratul against Uther, and normally, like, Uther has a god-awful Lunara matchup, but because it was Lunara Zeratul and they were playing it in the blow-up-someone style, like, Uther was actually a really good pick there, which I didn't expect to see even one Uther game going into Eastern Clash, but I just thought that was an interesting change in, like, how the style people played Lunara affected, like, what her matchups were so significantly.
Yeah, that's cool. Vala, 87% popularity rate as well. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? That's definitely not something I expected.
I think it has to do with like the shielding aspect, or a lot of it, just like being able to support something that is always going to be doing damage. Like, you just have super consistent damage output all the time. Like, you don't have to worry about it with the rest of your draft pretty much. I think if you have like something to shield and just enable something like a Vala, it's just always so good.
I feel like they over-relied on Vala as solo DPS, though. Like, I feel like there were a lot of comps where it was like bruiser, support, half support Vala, and you're like, you don't have a lot of damage, buddy. I don't know. Like, I just don't think you can run like that little damage and Vala carry it. At least that was my impression.
Only if you have a Zarya, because then the Zarya pops off too.
Yeah, probably.
I'm going to look at the Assassin win rate. I know Greyman's win rate was not great.
How come there was like no Cursed Bullet Greyman play?
Yeah.
That was weird. Like, there were 0 games of it in the winners final and grand finals, but like overall there was just not a lot of Cursed Bullet play. And I was surprised because I feel like that was the go-to heroic, honestly.
I think the other interesting stat to go with that, though, is the lack of prioritization on Varian, right? Like, you know, a lot of times Cursed Bullet, you got the setup with something like a Varian or whatever to just give you that immediate enabler and blow up. Varian saw 2 games played the whole event. That's actually really weird. Like, changes or not,
They were both by MVP Black, and he actually went an interesting build where he went Lion's Maw at 1 and then the Shield Wall and Live by the Sword at 4 and 7. It's actually interesting. I thought it was
a little bit more control, a little bit more slow.
Like,
Yeah.
he made like almost suicidal plays, I felt like, and then abused the fact that he couldn't die because of Shield Wall. It was actually really impressive.
Yeah, I saw that. I was really surprised to see them play it. Pretty sure I watched that series, the MVP with Tist on the Varian playing it that way. That was, it just seemed unfair. Like, compared to, I'm pretty sure it was, I think it was against Noblesse on Murden. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember just like watching it and like paying a lot of attention to the tanks, and like Noblesse would jump in and he'd be like full HP and he'd get his AoE on everybody, and it looked like he was doing really good. And then Tist would go in, and Tist would just like not take any he would do the same thing and just go in and just protect, and just like all that time that Noblesse is like taking like a fourth of his HP or something, like Tist just protect and just doesn't take any damage. Yeah, it looked really unfair. Like, Noblesse is dead and Tist is still at like 75% HP, and they're just doing the same thing. It was pretty weird.
Like, I had seen so little Shield Wall that literally one game I'm like watching, and then I like look back and like I see Varian go invulnerable or whatever, and I'm like, wait, there's no Medivh in this game. How is he doing that? And then I had to like look at his talents and be like, oh yeah, Shield Wall, okay. But yeah, it looked broken.
Overall, without the stun on Varian, how do you feel about him personally, Justin?
I thought he was going to be pretty terrible, but after watching Tist play it might actually still have a place. That surprised me quite a bit. I think with the Shield Wall version of Varian, I definitely don't think the E talent at 4 is still going to be good if it doesn't stun. I think the invulnerability is going to be pretty good. I would assume it would be like W build though, like 1 and 7 would be like.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's why I was confused about the Lion's Maw.
Yeah, so that is really weird.
It's interesting.
I think it's a thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think it'll be a thing against like pick comps and stuff. I think it could be pretty good. Just your own personal Medivh.
Yeah, because like a lot of team fights are lost when the tank gets picked in Korean match games. If you pay attention, like not picked, that's probably the wrong word, because it's not like they got caught out of position, but it's like the teams will be fighting and then like the tank will overstep a tiny bit, and in NA or EU I feel like the tanks just are kind of treated as if they're not really targetable no matter what a lot of the time. But then in Korean games, like you'll see people pop
Oh, the focus.
like solo moshes to kill the tank, or like just blow everything all at once to kill tanks, like which is kind of uncommon in the West.
That's true. Yeah, no, I don't know. I've seen a fair bit of Varian play between the Arcanum last week and this week in Open Division in North America. Again, that's the amateur scene, a little bit different in terms of the general scope, but W build was 100% of the time what we saw. No Lions Maw built into that. It'll be cool to see what teams try to do. Last night, Varian saw maybe 0 games played, though, so I'm very interested to see where he's going to end up landing as a hero. Do you think there's any promise for Colossal Smash? I always forget which it is.
I'm not sure, honestly, if it'll ever make its way to competitive.
Okay.
Other than like the cute one-shot picks. They saw like a couple of those, right? At the beginning, but not common.
Yeah, we tried it a little bit. It feels pretty weak, mostly just because his ultimate, the smash, doesn't... I don't really understand how it works yet, to be honest. It, like, you can use it on someone, and then they can do, like, any kind of mobility, and it, like, goes away, but you still, like, charge in and just, like, kind of smash the ground and do not... Like, it's, like, really weird. Like, it feels like just really awkward to cast, like Diablo abilities sort of sometimes do, where, like, you can Q something and it'll, like, bounce off your ally instead of terrain or something like that. It just feels, like, really awkward to use, I guess.
What if it was a skill shot where you went to a target location and smashed?
That would probably be better, unless they just like make it faster, like make it like actually lock on, because it doesn't really lock on. It's really easy to move away from if you have any mobility.
Be so funny to get pulled into a wormhole, and just pulled across the map or something.
Yeah, like a Zero Tool Blink. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The Stitches saw 1 game played. Johanna only saw 1 game played. So the tank meta definitely feels a little defined. China tried to mix things up, playing heroes like Chen, losing every game. We saw Diablo lose every game as well. Hero that seemed like he was doing pretty good for a while, and then everyone just figured out how to punish him. And now he just definitely struggles compared to some of the other warriors. I think how much of that is just that was always kind of Arthas's issue. Is Arthas had poor engage, and then the opposite of Diablo is Diablo has great engage, but neither of them had a whole lot of retreat. Diablo has like actual like 0 retreat. And do you think that's just kind of like the big flaw with him? Until you have Hellgate, you're super limited.
I think the reason that Diablo doesn't get played right now is like, even though I like really like to play Diablo, I also am starting to hate playing Diablo because his Q is so like unpredictable. Like he's just not reliable. Like you can't actually rely on him to like ever get the stun that you're expecting. Like I've had so many times where I've like queued to a hero and it's knocked that hero. I'm charging them. I charge them like into my hero or something. It's like right in front of the wall, and it just like bounces off, and then I just like don't get collision damage or something, or like it has a lot of weird interactions. Diablo's abilities, and also they can both get interrupted, like his Q and his E, which are his only CCs. Like on LAN, like you can just Murd and Stormbolt, just interrupt any of it like very easily, power slide, and then it takes the cooldown too. Like he can just get very easily put in really bad positions, and his abilities are just not consistent. I think that's his biggest problem.
That makes sense. I'm trying to see if there's any other heroes we haven't talked about that I found really surprising. Anything that you guys found super surprising in terms of hero picks and decision making that saw success in particular?
I don't know. I was impressed with Kyosha's Zera tool, I would say, against L5. It was pretty good. I mean, obviously, like the melee assassins are always good in Korean games, but like his Zera tool was super consistent in those matches, and in tough games, like it's hard to be consistently impactful. And I feel like his Zera tool really like kind of won them the first set and was like influential in the second set as well. So,
I was kind of surprised that there was so much priority on like Zarya so early in the draft. like that there was no fear of it being countered in any way, and that I thought it was kind of cool how it seemed like they weren't like the Korean teams weren't necessarily like, it didn't seem like they were used to like that much priority on the hero. Like it seemed like E-Star in their match against MVP just picked it like every single time they could, like instantly just first picked it. Just I thought that was kind of interesting, and then I thought it was kind of cool how Tyrael started becoming like first picked between the two Korean teams when they were playing against each other near the end. And I was really I was a little surprised also that they didn't prioritize globals quite to the same extent, like early in the draft as like it felt like some like European teams and like NA teams were doing. And
like at Eastern Clash, you could get to Hawk at the end of the drafts.
Yeah, that was very weird to me. Yeah. So that would have been like first pick priority in the Western Clash. And then I just thought Tist played phenomenally through the entire event. Like I watched him a lot, and he really impressed me. He played extremely well.
Yeah.
Tist is definitely very good at the game.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find this here, so bear with me for one moment. Obviously, we talk about some of the heroes that just make their way into one event. Illidan was kind of confined to what was it, E-Star that was playing them, I think. And then why can I not find somebody played a ton of Zagara? Which obviously Zagara has been extinct for a while. I see one game played by Zero Panda. I thought somebody played like
SPT Super Perfect Team played 3 games as well.
That's so weird.
Yeah. They only won one of them.
It's just bizarre to think, you know, we have got this robust ranged pool from mages to auto heroes, and for me, I think it's super weird that a team would prioritize Zagara over like even Hammer. Like Hammer's, she's got her weaknesses, but she's got her play still too, more than Zagara, I feel. But I don't know. There's it's definitely weird things that happen in some of these lands. Of course, the meta does get confined. And we've already started to see some of the influence. We mentioned it earlier. Heroes like Lunara and Zarya being seen more in North America already. The Zarya first pick is like, as you mentioned, was something that was happening a lot there. It's happening a ton here in the open division side of things for NA. And it's going to keep changing. That's the crazy part, because you guys got, what, 3 more weeks before we start back up with Pro League?
Yep, just about, around that.
And we could easily get another big patch before then, right? Like,
hopefully not too soon before then, but
well, you guys tend to play on a different server anyways. So you guys would probably end up playing on this server that we have now. But like, you know, so then the meta will exist in that for a little while. You guys will have that time to practice this, and then who knows? We know Uther rework is something. They did the dev Q&A. The Uther rework could very well bring him into the meta, which I'm super hopeful for. I really want support pool changes. But I guess the last thing I wanted to mention with the Eastern Clash before we step away from it is, MVP Black took the win over L5. I think that was a big deal for them to say that. But then Merida immediately after announces that after this season is done, after the midseason brawl, he will be retiring to go back to school. And it's sad, man. It feels like every time we get a world champion, one of their best players steps away, like Rich, now Mary Day. It's tough.
I mean, they've like the game is like maturing to the point where you're kind of reaching the expected like duration of pros playing. Like at this point, Mary Day's been playing for at least 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's a lot of time to devote.
That's true. And if your salary is not like, you know, something crazy, and you have to look towards the future, sometimes you got to make that call. And you know, good on him for being mature enough to look at that, you know, the long term, and just say, yeah, well, this is kind of what I have to do. But we'll see. We will see. Any final thoughts on Eastern Clash? So Justin, I'm going to give you the floor here in terms of, again, overall, what you'd like to see evolve in the game, warrior thoughts. What do you like? What do you dislike the most? So you mentioned Anoob's OP and overtuned. If you had one big change to make to warriors, what would it be?
I'd like them to do things that make. I don't want them to like do anything that like makes the meta too rigid, but I would prefer if they made tanks in a way so that it was like mostly solo tank, because I just feel like the game plays out better when it's like a single tank versus like double tank. I feel like double tank games just like feel slower to me. They just like, and I feel like that might be kind of like where we end up going if we make too many tank changes and like buffing them too much. There might just be double tank meta every game, and I feel like that's not the most fun meta. I think like melee, like double ranged, is typically the most fun to watch at least and play. So just hopefully they don't overtune them to the point that they need to like also like bring in like percent damage overhaul or something like that to like combat that. I just would prefer if they didn't take things to make things go that way.
Do you almost wish that like the bruiser role was a separate thing? So let's say that bruisers were, Alarak, Thrall, Sonya, Zarya. Like you kind of combine the melee assassin with some of those melee, bruiser-esque warriors. Do you think that would be a valuable thing for defining? Because then you look at that almost as from the ground up. Like I know we talk about pro almost exclusively here on the show, but then you look at things like Quick Match, you look at things like Hero League, and if players inherently know that they're picking a hero more for that melee damage rather than being a tank, do you think there's any value in potentially doing that?
I think that would be fine to do. Like I think maybe just like increasing melees, like either like damage or just like, because like I guess it depends on the hero, because like if you categorize like all those melees together, like they all like function in pretty different ways. Like Zeratul, for example, like he's not really like a body on the front line, even though he's still like a melee assassin, and he has like a high impact ultimate. Like I would prefer
he could be labeled as an assassin though. He wouldn't be just just because you're melee doesn't mean you're described as a person.
I mean like I would prefer, I guess, the melees to like I don't know, like maybe just excel more in some way, like to make up for like their lack of tankiness, because like it feels like for a lot of melees in a 1v1, if you put like Arthas against Thrall, for example, like it feels like Thrall just kind of bodies them out, but I feel like it shouldn't maybe be so much that way. Like I feel like they like the bruisers should be like better 1v1 heroes, like more like I feel like they should be like more like specialized so that they're not so easily interchanged with like tanks, like so you don't just go double tank. Like Zeratul is an example of like a for me like a very well designed melee, because he is super impactful. He has his ultimate. He's not like a traditional like melee hero on the front line. So like I would prefer if they just like made them more specialized maybe, because like it kind of seems like the big chunk of melees like Sonya, Thrall, like those types of melees just kind of do similar things, which is why Rag would be the best, because he's pretty much the same as all, like he does like the same thing, but it's just all AoE. Like there's like it feels like there's like no reason to pick Thrall over like Rag, because Rag is like basically Thrall with all AoE abilities.
Far more
like,
efficient, yeah.
It kind of feels like they would just have to like buff up the bruisery type heroes a little bit more if they're gonna make the tank so strong. Otherwise, I think we'll probably see double tank meta like coming soon.
I mean, even at Eastern Clash, it was like double tank every game.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every single game had at least 2 tanks on each team. Shudder to think about the Tyrael, Zarya, and another tank games. Resident Sleeper.
Jeez, yeah. Fair enough. Well, obviously, things will start to be figured out with what we're going to have moving forward. We know that there's some stuff on the horizon. The balance team is constantly tweaking and adjusting all of these things. So Arthas, Anubarak, these godly tanks, I'm sure will not remain as OP in their specific roles for too long, I hope. And maybe we will see more diversity. It feels like we get like a lot of diversity in spikes, and then it kind of trickles away, and then we get it in spikes, and then it kind of trickles away because the meta gets figured out, and then the patch hits, and then. But maybe that's just the nature of the beast. I don't know. I'm just hoping for as much hero pool variety as humanly possible with this game. That's really all I care about. AKA, give me Tyrande every game, and I'm good. She's my bae. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to transition to the shout-out segment. Now, before we just kind of do that, make sure you guys check out all the cool things happening. Heroes of the Dorm is, in fact, a thing that is going on. I think it might even be live right now. We do have a few more weeks before before the Pro League does kick back in. So it is a bit of a lull here for a lot of the pro content for Heroes. Arcanum Season 1 Finals will be on April 1st. So that's top 8 for our league, which is just completed a week ago. So there's definitely some stuff to be tuning into, and I'm thinking about running a reverse draft Gladius event. I'm not sure if teams would want to play in that or not, but that's something that I might be doing in the month of April. But Justin, thank you for joining us. Why don't you do some shout outs and let people know where they can find you?
All right, thanks for having me. It was fun. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/thisjusting. It's the same as my Twitch handle. I should probably actually be streaming like next week. Haven't streamed in a long time, but so it's the same as my Twitter, and I'll post it on Twitter when I'm streaming there. And pretty much, yeah, just shout outs to anyone who follows Teammate and everyone who's watching. Thanks a bunch.
Dunkus.
Is that a joke off of This Just In?
Has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be.
It has to be? That is soups dece.
Yeah.
I never noticed that before. For me, you guys can find me on Twitter and Twitch, just DunkTrain. And I'm not really sure what's going on right now with respect to, making Twitch content or what my plans are for the future. Things are still up in the air, trying to work stuff out, but I will let you guys know when I come to a resolution with that stuff.
For me, same as always, follow Arcane8. Arcane8 on Twitter. It's Arcane8_GG. Here on Twitch at Arcane8. YouTube is Arcane8 as well. We have a Facebook. I should really give that some love. But I don't even know the URL. I think it's Arcane8_GG or something. Anyways, yeah, no, do us that follow button really helps a lot. We are in the process of trying to expand our capabilities and the amount of content we put out via the support of sponsors. So we're currently looking to run some really cool stuff. I mean, yeah, we've got TownHall, we've got Open Division, we've got Arcanum. They're all great, but we want to do more and more and more and bigger things. We definitely want to create some opportunities that are good for the pros outside of the Open Division as well. Because I think I think over in Europe, there's an event. I can't remember. I think it's actually King of the Storm, which tilts me a little bit because Kings of the Storm was the original tournament series here in North America. And Sia Steve ran that, and I did the production, and that's where Kubi and I became casters. They're running an event that I believe is amateur and pro. And then I think there's another one here in NA. It's like a $1,500 prize. It's similar. It's also amateur pro. More of that is what I want because that helps the amateur scene level up. We have like the Crucible like once this year kind of thing. These teams have the opportunity to scrim together, but I want to create more and more of that. And I've been working my butt off on some announcements that will be soon-ish, TM. So keep your eyes out for that because we've got some cool stuff on the horizon. But hitting that follow button to increase our numbers, like in every sense, it helps us a lot. So it's the easiest way to make a difference. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in this week here. TownHall Heroes episode 138. We'll see you next time. GG's and have a good night.